Oh, hang on. I might need to connect. I forgot that I'm not on a headset right now. Just give me a sec, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't flash your junk up on the screen again, dude. It's weird.
Hello, my friends.
Thank you for joining us for the PEBCAK Podcast, a weekly information security show featuring some all-around good people. It is week 3 of 2024. I'm Chris Louie, and it's finally starting to feel like winter here in Northern California. No sinkholes this year, though, so far, thankfully. With me, I have my co-host, the Hot Dad, who has no problem working out in 29-degree weather.
Hey, a body fitness, or what was it called? Body weight fitness challenge is a body weight fitness challenge. 29 or 129. I'm here to stay, boys.
And for our international listeners, that's 29 degrees Fahrenheit in freedom units, not Celsius.
What is that? In
Always
Celsius?
freedom unit.
You guys do the math? Is that like minus 20 or something like that?
No, it's like -2,
Minus
-3.
2, yeah. Minus 2 or 3.
Que tempo hace frio.
And we have Glenn Medina, or should we call him COVID positive?
Unbelievable. I lasted 4 years without getting it. And I'll tell you why I think I got COVID. Because we started dry January, and I normally have vodka on ice, which normally
yeah,
cleanses
that's
the palate.
true.
And
No,
because we
it,
did that,
it kills the germs. It kills
Yeah,
the
it
germs.
kills
The
the
vodka
germs.
kills the germs.
yeah, I'm telling you, I think that's why I got COVID for sure this time.
Yeah, because vodka goes in your lungs. Exactly.
No, clears
Mr.
the area
Respiratory
around it.
disease.
Yeah.
This is
Airborne
not
Better than
medical
the guy
advice,
that caught
obviously.
COVID like 5 times. Come on, man.
I've only had it once that I know about.
Yeah, because you don't test. So,
Did you actually test?
yes, I tested, and
No, you
I
did
tested
not.
before. I did.
Let's see. No, did you test this time now that you're claiming that you're COVID positive?
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah,
tested.
that's how he found out. He said
Oh.
he was feeling sick, and then he tested, and then he was confirmed positive.
Then why are we going to call him, like, perhaps we should call him COVID positive? Like,
Not,
he is
not,
COVID positive now. He's
yeah.
CPC. No, CPG.
Hold on.
CP.
COVID
I
positive
didn't.
Glenn.
I didn't test because I felt bad. I tested because I had what do you call that? Symptoms, right? And I was coughing, achy body, not feeling. I couldn't breathe, and a fever, and
You
that's
almost
what
sound like the
triggered.
NyQuil ad. The nighttime achy
Nighttime
sneezy.
sleeping, achy, headache,
Yeah. Get you out of bed
diarrhea.
of the medicine. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, COVID conspiracy theorists, let's go.
All right. CP Glenn. We need new nicknames for 2024 anyway, so he'll be CP Glenn for 2024.
CPG. It's even cooler.
I wouldn't recommend
CPG.
it. CP stands for a lot of other stuff on the internet.
That's the joke, Kush. That's the joke.
Oh, thanks a lot.
You got
Thanks
it.
a lot.
Kush got it. All right, CP Glenn. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the last one standing on the show who has not caught it.
Yes! I am invincible!
I am knocking on wood right now to hope that I don't catch it.
Would you take the test though if you did have the symptoms?
Oh, I always test. Yeah, I always test
Okay.
when the kids have it, and when I'm not feeling well, we always test.
Chris has so
Gotcha.
many COVID home tests. They're like pregnancy tests for like college dorms,
Gosh,
right? And he's got so many of them just laying around. They're about to expire. So he just, out of boredom, he's just penetrating his nose, just checking daily to see if he has it or not.
Yeah, it's supposed to go up your nose, Brian.
You don't swab your butt, Chris. You swab your nose, and that's why you've been coming out negative. So
This week we have our guest, friend of the show, Kush. Welcome back, Kush.
Thanks, Chris. I'm not sure
Gosh.
how I feel about following that one, but I'll take what I get.
I think we had you on probably it was definitely in the double digits. So has anything changed since you were last on the show, Kush?
Not too much. We've been doing a little bit more at work, broaden scope, but otherwise it's about the same. Moved to Amsterdam. That was a big change.
That's a big change.
Yeah, nothing much changed. Oh, by the way, we moved to Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's been
Just
a while.
moved to a
but I
different
forget
country.
This is the new normal.
Where
you
every
moved
drug
to
is legal.
Amsterdam? Get
Yeah.
out of here.
It's
Where were
been
you
a bit
before?
over a year.
California?
No,
California.
The
India.
red light district.
Oh, India. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a big
It's been
difference.
over a year, so I sort of forget that,
Yeah.
that this is a change now. Now it's a new normal.
Yeah.
Nice.
Kush had
Any
told
red
me
light-
that, I'll go ahead, Glenn.
Any red lights by where you live?
Yeah, red light
No,
district.
definitely not. Pretty far away from there. Yeah, but I gotta say, like the Dutch folks, like they're extremely nice.
Yeah.
In fact, I was having a chat after I got here with one of my colleagues, and they were just asking me, it was like my second week here, and they were like, how are you liking the Netherlands? And I was like, it's good, except that people here are suspiciously sweet, right? People are so sweet that you wonder, like, what do you want from me? Like, do you have an agenda? If so, just tell me what you want, right?
Yeah, you've been hardened by all those years spent in India.
I don't know.
I would say I've been hardened by
too.
all the time I spent in California. Same thing.
Snowflake.
Yeah, but it's
So
absolutely great.
is India pretty rough? Or are people like not as kind over there?
It kind of depends on the day someone's having, but in general, Indian people are pretty friendly.
Oh, okay.
Especially if you're visiting, right? If one of you guys show up, then yeah, you're gonna have like people swarming you, just asking you like how they can help.
I would say I would probably agree with that. What's funny is there's one dude at Zscaler, and he's so like on paper like he's nice, and then we became friends, and he's the biggest crap talker now, and he's from India. He's just like, I get like a random like New Year's Eve text. He's like, "Don't forget who's daddy." I'm like, "What? Why would you send that to me, man?"
Nice.
That sounds about right. Yeah, like the average Indian can be extremely friendly, but once you get to know someone, yeah, then they're like, okay, I don't have to be extra sweet to you anymore, right? Now you
I
see
think
the real Unleashed.
It's the fourth dimension of a friendship, right? Just insults.
Yeah, but then that's how you know your relationship's gotten better, right? Now you're like, okay, now we're real friends.
That's solid. It doesn't work with your wife. When you start calling her names, she doesn't literally latch onto that as much as you would think. So a little pro tip for you, man.
Hang on, taking notes.
Taking notes. You heard it here on the PEBCAK. Combined, we have decades of information security experience, and here not just to educate, but to entertain. We've got 4 awesome stories for this week, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This week, we're going to talk about the fake lockdown mode on iPhones. A security vendor gets breached again. Apple thwarting iPhone thefts. And close with Stuxnet talk. For our first topic, this one was reported before the break and it relates to a story we covered in a previous podcast. We talked about iPhone malware that mimics a shutdown screen animation to make a user think that they powered off their phone to destroy any memory resident malware. Well, there's new research out of Jamf that says there is a new exploit on iPhones that fools users into believing that their hacked iPhone is in lockdown mode. So typically when a phone is in lockdown mode, it has a little banner at the bottom that says your iPhone is in lockdown mode. And this malware tricks users by putting that banner there when their phone is actually not in lockdown mode, giving them a false sense of security. So that's just one of the things that Apple will now have to combat to make sure that there's no fake lockdown mode screens to allow users to think that they're actually in lockdown mode. And if you remember, lockdown mode is the mode that Apple offers for Macs, iPads, and iPhones, where it turns off many of the common features that are abused by mercenary-grade spyware like NSO Group's Pegasus. So that would be perfect to allow a target to think that they're protected when they're actually not.
So you know what's funny about this is I actually have a conspiracy theory. So this is pretty bad. I think we all can agree. So what did Apple do? They decided to blow out the rear door of an Alaska Airlines flight, have one of their phones fall 16,000 feet to the ground and still work. They changed the narrative,
I
folks.
think it was 2 phones.
It's a conspiracy.
2 iPhones. Yeah.
So now we know. Like that's the one story I actually saw. I didn't see this one. So that should tell you.
Maybe
Why is the
that's
FBI
dad joke
knocking
of
at
the
my
week,
door?
You know, that whoever's phone fell down, they didn't lock their phone down well enough. That's why it flew out the door.
Someone was able to turn it on, you mean, when it landed?
No, it was just a dad joke about how the phone was not actually physically locked down.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you what, I guarantee that phone wasn't a teenage girl's because they will not let that thing get pried from their hands, period.
They would have
Door
jumped
being
out of that
sucked
phone.
open.
What are you talking about?
For real.
Yeah, but you know, this exploit actually, it's maybe it's a testament to lockdown mode, right? If attackers want you to believe it's on, that tells you it's probably effective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I know Apple has offered really high rewards if anyone can breach lockdown mode for their bug ban. I think it's $2 million if you can.
What are we doing on this
their
PEBCAK?
lockdown
Come
mode.
on, guys. We should be trying to figure that thing out. Huh?
That $2 million,
I
Glenn.
could use 2 million. I could use $500,000.
You want that $2 million?
It'd be 4 ways, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 of us. Look at this. We can spend our time doing that. Yeah.
Your idea.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the idea alone
Yeah.
should net you $500,000. Obviously, you guys give me $500,000 just because I'm here.
Wouldn't it be
and Kush and
cool
Chris
if
can
we
do
could
the hard
just farm this out to Craigslist? I need
Develop the
someone to
exploit.
figure out lockdown mode, how to hack it, send it somewhere, have them figure out, and then take credit for it. Is that possible?
I mean, that's essentially like Bugcrowd and Hackeroni.
Pay someone like
Those companies do that.
$20,000 for
Manage
it,
bug bounty.
$2 million.
I have my
Which-
son using his first decompiler on some iOS stuff because he wants to reverse engineer a game that's no longer under development, so he can put it back into like tournament mode or something like that. I have no idea. I'm like, yeah, I just would have given up. I don't think I have that aptitude, but it's good to see that you are, and I think that's exactly what's going on with iOS. People are like, they're freaking savages, man. Like anytime I hear that iOS has been 0 day or backdoor or something like that, I'm always kind of blown away. So much effort goes into locking that thing down and making it secure that there's
It's
just
software,
things
though,
that are
right?
always
At the end
there.
of the day, it's software. If
At the end of the day, yep, it's software. Well, for Apple, it's software
if you
and
look at the
hardware because
list
they own their full
of
stack.
probably, vulnerabilities between Android and Apple, I'd like to say the list is probably shorter on the Apple side than they are on Android. Right?
Oh, definitely.
It has been for a while, but recently it's been much harder to get into Pixels, like for the past at least year and change. The
Yeah.
Pixels have developed a pretty good reputation too. The rest of Android...
It's the same idea, I think, because Google owns the hardware and the software, so
Exactly.
they have way better control over it. And when we had Sam Curry on, I think he also mentioned that for a very long time, what Glenn said was true, that the list of iOS exploits was shorter, but more recently, iOS has been catching up to Android, or the number of Android has been going down.
Android, look at
iPhone, but I've also got an old Android which I don't use anymore for exactly this reason.
burner phone in Amsterdam. Makes sense.
What could possibly be used for?
No comment.
No, he bought a new iPhone to bridge it so he can get blue messages on his old Android.
His Android, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
but you know what, Brian? This sort of closes the loop back to the teenage thing you were mentioning, right? There's nothing like a motivated teenager that helps you fix a problem. The blue bubble thing was also something that it was actually based on a weakness that some 16-year-old found because he wanted blue bubbles on his Android phone, and he put it up on GitHub. And the next thing you know,
Wow.
Beeper's building something on top of that.
Actually,
There's
Yeah,
no
same thing
force
with
like
that.
a motivated teenager.
That's exactly how Log4j came out. One of the top exploited vulnerabilities by the Chinese PLA was a bunch of teenagers griefing each other on Minecraft
On
servers.
Minecraft, yeah.
Yeah. Never underestimate the power of those teenagers to break things and grief people.
but shoot, Minecraft's got so many users, man. It makes sense.
Wasn't there
We
this
have like
whole...
a billion people use Minecraft.
Probably.
Seriously, it's up to a billion?
There's a lot of people on Minecraft. It's not as popular as it was before. At least from what I'm hearing, but maybe.
Whatever.
Maybe
we know
you
that
and
you're
I
already
are
playing. Oh, it's only got, it has 140 million active players. Okay, I lied. That's a fraction.
Well, stay safe out there if your phone's in lockdown mode. There's got to be a way to check if it's actually really in lockdown mode or not. But just because it says it's in lockdown mode, don't believe it. Just because your phone shuts down may not actually be shutting down.
You know, we should have like an app. Do you guys remember the app from Gibson Research Company called Shields Up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that
Shields
okay.
goes
Up,
back.
Yeah, check to see if you have like UPnP
Open
enabled.
ports,
yeah.
UPnP,
Open
yeah.
ports.
We should have something on
Good
chrisley.net that'll check to see if your
Ooh.
iPhone's breached or not, or at least not in lockdown mode.
We
That'd
could
be
make
pretty
money on
cool.
that.
It's owned, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Haven't
considering
checked
how
that.
much Apple locks down the OS, if Chris's tool is actually able to get access to the right resources to check that tells you you're not in lockdown.
That's the check. If the tool works, then you failed. All right, for our second topic on Christmas Eve, Barracuda, the email security gateway company, delivered their own Christmas surprise. China-linked UNC 4841 group, their APT group, has identified a new zero-day vulnerability affecting these ESG appliances. One of the vulnerabilities was triggered by sending a maliciously crafted Excel spreadsheet. When the email security gateway product scanned the file attachment, it allowed for remote code execution on the device. They patched one of the bugs, but not the other, and referred customers to the CVE write-up for mitigations. Now, if you remember from our podcast last year, Barracuda was the security vendor that got owned, and they said the only way to fix it is to throw your device in a bin and we'll send you a new one. And even after they patched the devices, they were still vulnerable, and they just couldn't figure out how these guys kept getting back in. And then, surprise, surprise, these Chinese state-backed actors found yet another way to get into these appliances. So that really begs the question, should you start looking for a new email security gateway vendor?
Well, I think more importantly, should Barracuda replace security with or just take the security out of their gateway entirely? Just call it an EG appliance because I don't know.
An email
Are
gateway.
they still flying
It doesn't do
banners
security
over
anymore.
beaches across the U.S. on planes? Remember those days?
Yeah, I remember walking through the airport and being able to seeing their ads everywhere. I don't see that much anymore. I think after they were no longer a public company and they got bought by the PE firm, I think they slashed their marketing budget.
Imagine going back to like your 20-year high school reunion and you're like, yeah, like, what do you do for a living? Unfortunately, I'm addicted to meth. And what about you? I've been in prison for 20 years. And what about you? I work for Barracuda. And everyone's like, oh, man. Yeah, geez, rough life, brother.
Rough life.
Rough life. I don't know how you do it. Stupid.
But it is
Also-
a hard problem to solve, right? Where like anytime you're reading anything, how do you ensure that the code that's reading stuff doesn't have weaknesses of its own?
Yeah, it's an interpreter. That's the hardest thing. Like
Exactly.
I remember maybe 2 years ago, Windows Defender, that's also an interpreter. It has to scan every file. And if you sent a maliciously crafted file and landed on the device, you didn't even have to run it. But as long as Windows Defender picked it up, then it would have, I forgot what it did. It killed the process or crashed it or something.
Yeah, even we were discussing lockdown mode a minute ago. Even lockdown mode exists partially for the same reason, because one of the things it does is it disables the parts of the modules that read links and other messaging data in the background, because that was one way Pegasus constantly got in. There was a similar vulnerability on called Stage Fright on Android. Again, attacked the messaging interpreter. As long as you're interpreting something, I don't have to find a weakness in the OS. I find a weakness in the interpreter.
Stage Fright's a good exploit name. I'll tell you what. We've all had it.
Stage Fright actually, I
yeah.
don't think it was the exploit. I think it was actually the subsystem, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember
funny.
that one.
That's
they
tempting
actually
fate.
showed that in Mr. Robot. I remember there was someone in Mr. Robot said, "Hey, go to this website and fill out a survey." And then when they hit the website, it caused a stage fright exploit on their Android device, and they owned them.
Yeah, but you are tempting fate if you name a subsystem of your Stage Fright. If the name sounds like an exploit, you're probably just tempting fate.
Yeah, interpreters are notoriously difficult to get right, and there's a lot that can go wrong. But bad luck for Barracuda. They just keep getting owned on these devices.
Yeah, tell that to all the Afghan interpreters that we used. Poor bastards.
Did you watch that one? The Jake Gyllenhaal movie?
Yeah, the
I forget
Covenant.
what it's called. Covenant, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
If that's true, man, we left a whole lot of people out there hanging
That is true, yeah.
on a false promise. And that's
The
heartbreaking.
message in the credits at the end, yeah. Yeah, that is true, unfortunately.
So
Not this
going to-
country's brightest moment.
No. So I had a question. You said that these are China-backed or China government-backed actors. Like, I don't think Chinese government has anyone's back. So isn't this more like Chinese forced slave labor of hacking into stuff? Like, I don't.
6 in one hand, half a dozen on the other.
Okay.
Maybe it's like the Russia kind of thing, right? Where you don't have to actively back them. You just, as long as you don't prosecute them, that's kind of about as much as helpful as backing them.
Yeah, it's like your day job is you hack for the government. Your night job is you do financially motivated crime, and the government just looks the other way.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. On that note, for our third topic, another iPhone story. This one also came out before the break. Apple is releasing a stolen device protection to thwart iPhone thieves with a passcode time delay. This is a feature that was added because people were getting their iPhone stolen, and somehow the thieves were getting their passcode either through coercion or shoulder surfing or through other means. And if they had the passcode, they had the keys to the kingdom. They could change the passcode, they can change the iCloud account, they can change pretty much anything on the device, and that locks out the owner from being able to report the device stolen or to be able to track the device. Well, Apple implements a new feature called Stolen Device Protection, and that implements a 24-hour delay before when you request a passcode get changed to when the passcode actually changes. And that's typically more than enough time for a victim to be able to report the device stolen, log into the iCloud account, lock it down, wipe the device, and that should, in theory, thwart the thief from being able to reset the iCloud account or reset the device for sale. To not inconvenient users and not make them wait 24 hours to change their PIN or their passcode when they actually want it changed immediately, they're implementing trusted zones as well. So if you change the passcode at home or at work, somewhere where you spend lots of time, then that 24-hour delay does not apply.
I think, again, this goes back to a teenage girl. I think it'd be more like 24 seconds before they realize their phone's gone. Even in the middle of the night, my daughter would wake up in cold sweat, running around the house looking for it if I took it out of
Well,
her
my
room.
daughter, you're going to love this one. My daughter was grocery shopping, lost her phone, had to use someone's phone at Safeway to give me a call. I tracked it down and went up to the lady and said, "Hey, you need to give her a phone back." She goes, "No, I don't have it." And I pinged it. And two things that came from this, right? Do you guys remember the sequence or the podcast where you can disable command center or control center or command center from being swiped down and turning off? I had to do that before, and that was the only thing that saved us from this homeless person taking her phone. That and the fact that I told them I was going to beat the crap out of them if they didn't freaking give me my phone back. So
threats of physical violence.
But that was nice enough. I gave him $20 afterwards, and I'm like, "Hey, thanks for being honest, even though you weren't." But yeah, so
My daughter once lost her AirPods, and we did the whole like find my devices. We ended up finding it some street, and it was there. It wasn't moving. So I was like, I'm just gonna go over there. Like, she lost it at school, so I was go over there and pull up and ask him for it. And yeah, it's definitely the part of town that I didn't expect to be in at that particular moment. I'm like, all right, whatever. Lots of broken down vehicles in the front yard. Chained up dog. And I knock on the door. I can hear people talking, but they're not doing it. And so then I go to the side and I knock on the window, and I scare the crap out of the lady doing her laundry. And then she doesn't speak any English, so just looking at me puzzled. So doing my thing, and next thing you know, the husband comes out, and I can only describe him as being frustrated with running out of like flesh to tattoo, right? Like he had it everywhere. like you can tell some of them
choices,
was his choice, and some of them maybe he was held down for. I don't know. But so then I'm like, all right, well, now I got to accuse this kid of stealing my daughter's AirPods. I was like, hey man, think that maybe your son or daughter, I knew it was a son, maybe picked up something that wasn't his. My phone's telling me that it's here. And he's like, I'm not going to try to imitate exactly how he sounds, but he's like, okay, well, I'll let you know, because I give him my phone number. And then about 30 minutes later, he calls me. He's like, yeah, my son has them. Do you want me to give it to him at school, or do you want to pick it up? It was like a Friday. He's like, oh, we'll just come pick it up. So it ended up working out, but it was one of those sketchy moments. Like, I remember pulling up to the house, and everybody that was with me was like, don't.
So
don't
did he steal? Did he steal it?
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Just buy a new one.
He told my daughter on Monday that he had seen them on the table, and he just took them. But she's like, but they were in my backpack, so I don't know how you sell them on the table. But
Yeah.
I bet he did.
Found them.
You don't have that problem in Amsterdam.
Good Samaritan, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Not yet. I've only been
Not
here.
yet.
We'll find out. No, but it's usually this is kind of going to be a problem with everything, right? Anything you can leave behind. Like we only know this now. We only notice it so much because we're carrying like electronics around. But back in the day, this happened with like wallets and other valuables, right? Identity,
Anything
ID
portable.
cards.
Yeah. And if you have Find My turned on, they're actually pretty good. Like after I moved, because I have the setting in Find My that says don't alert me when I leave something behind at home. But after I moved, I didn't update my address. And every time I leave my house, now sure enough, it says, oh, you left your laptop behind. Oh, you left your AirPods behind. No, you left your this behind. So it can tell you that. And in theory, I guess if somebody walks away with it, it should tell you that too, that it's like this thing is no longer in range.
But how far
Yeah,
do you normally get? Like I'm like 6 miles from the house before I'm like, oh, you forgot your wallet, idiot. I'm like, damn it.
It's I don't know what the geofence is, but the location it always alerts me on is a half mile from my house.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it's based on distance. I think it's just pinging every so often. So, if it happened to ping like 30 seconds before you left it behind, then the next time it pings might be minutes later. And you've already
Kudos to
made
them.
your way
I like
forward.
the fact that I have those features now, right, and those capabilities. My wife said it's making me dumber, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Depending on all this technology,
What a time to
right?
be
It's
alive,
like
right?
You depend on that instead of just saying, "Hey, phone, wallet, keys, where are they when you leave the house?" Right? They should always be with you.
Yeah.
But the reason they've had to do this in the first place is because they'd essentially had your biometrics and your passcode as a backup override sort of become superior to even your account password, right? If you forget your account password, you can use your passcode or even just biometrics to work around that. And that's the reason this whole thing comes up. But
That's what they say. Like you can have the strongest authentication method, like use passkeys, you can do whatever. The weakest link is always the reset function. There's always got to be some way to reset. Somebody gets locked out and then you either brick the device or you have to have some kind of backdoor to reset the password.
Yeah. Plus with biometrics, even if you do have biometrics and let's say you've got really secure biometrics and passkeys and those are the only factors you've got. The one thing about biometrics is you don't have the choice to not unlock. Right?
Yeah, someone can cut off your finger or cut off your face.
Yeah, I think I remember reading a research paper when like they first added Touch ID that said like for some reason this wouldn't work with a cut off finger because it requires like active blood supply
Like a pulse or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
You imagine
Still
it's
cool,
like
man.
it gets to the point of taking your blood pressure, you're just sitting there with a cuff on your arm. That's like, this biometric stuff is nonsense.
Yeah, that or the Face ID. You can't use a picture; it has to be alive and or it has to be a 3D, and then
It has
you
to
have
be moving.
the eyes open or the eyes closed feature as well, so someone can't unlock it when you're asleep.
Yeah, at CES this week there was some I forget who it was. I think Schlage or one of these guys. They had this this front door lock, smart door lock that unlocks with biometrics, and I was like, seriously, your front door, and you don't have a choice to not say I'm not going to unlock this.
Yeah,
Somebody could just like hold
put
your
finger
thumb
on
down.
it. Yep.
How do you guys feel
Yeah,
about your
you-
cars? Like, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say the other fun thing is to go on the lock picking lawyer and then see how he defeats like these biometric locks and everything. It's always a side channel attack. He's never he never MacGyvers. He never gets like graphite and blows it on and tries to mimic the fingerprint. No, it's always something stupid like you put a magnet next to it and then it unlocks.
That's funny.
Isn't there an
kinda feel
XKCD
like-
for that?
So what was that, Kush?
There's an XKCD for that, I think, where they were like, this guy goes like, oh, I've got like 2048-bit encryption and this and that, and the guy goes like, yeah, but I got a $5 range.
Yeah, I'll just beat them until
The
he
other
gives
one
it
was,
up.
you have all these cars, right, that had these locks, and you just bump them with a tennis ball with a drilled hole in it. That was pretty easy. That was pretty snazzy.
Yeah, those are the late '90s Camrys. That's why they were stolen so much
High dollar.
before the Kia boys.
Yeah. I feel like the newer cars make you a little bit dumber, right? Like if you have like an EV, for instance, you can't walk away without the vehicle locking. and then even then, like you can park on a suspect street, but the only thing you do is steal something from the inside. They can't really steal the car, even if they did. Like you know where it's at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, then the pin to drive and things like that. But yeah, won't stop someone from breaking the window.
I do like the new
your
feature.
stuff.
Yeah.
Unless you're Mark Rober.
I do like the new feature for the Toyotas where they install the app. And you can install the Toyota app on your phone.
No. What? Toyota? What'd you say?
Hyundai.
Toyota. Did I say it wrong?
Toyota?
You want me to say Yoda? Toyota.
I think you're saying. I don't even know what the hell you're saying,
Toyota.
but I think you're trying to say Toyota.
So the kid got a new car, and I have the app, and I could tell how fast she's going, how hard she's braking, turn by turn, destination by destination. I'm like, this is way better than anything you could ever buy, right? So it's like, damn, this is pretty cool. Yeah,
Brian had that service on his car. Like you plug it in the OBD port. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't plugged in, or it didn't come with the car. I had to put it in there. It was like $75 a month, but very good for coaching the kids, and threatening them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you like it only because you're on the other side of the equation. I'm sure 16-year-old Brian and Glenn are not going to love this feature.
I would find some way to defeat it.
16-year-old
went around that corner how fast?
I don't know.
16-year-old Brian would have jumped his car within the first 5 hours of having it, and then totaling it.
13-year-old Glenn figured out how to bypass the home alarm system, so that tells you about me.
Well, you guys are rich. We had a dog. You had an alarm system? Whew.
16-year-old Keelan learned how to jump his car on a pole at a Jack in the Box.
Yeah, this started his stripping career. Pole dancing cars.
All right, for our last topic, and it'll be a rotating topic every week. This week, we're going to talk about the Dutch engineer that got Stuxnet into the Iran nuclear program. This story has been making its rounds, and there are some conflicting accounts whether or not this is actually true. But the story is, if you remember back, was it 2009 or so? The Iran's nuclear program was in full swing. The U.S. was looking for ways to stop it. I think it actually started under George W. Bush and continued under Barack Obama. And they found this malware. Allegedly, it cost $1 to $2 billion to make, used 4 zero-day exploits, which was a lot back in 2009. And there was no way to get it into this nuclear facility because it was completely air-gapped. Well, they found a way to get it in. I think it spread through USB a little bit later, but allegedly the first way they got Stuxnet into the Natanz nuclear facility was the Dutch intelligence agency approached a Dutch engineer who worked on these water pumps. I think they were Siemens water pumps, asked him to infect the device or bring an infected device inside the nuclear facility. And then the rest is history. The Natanz facility experienced higher than expected destruction of their centrifuges. Allegedly, it set their nuclear program back a few years, and it's now in full swing again. But it at least disrupted them enough to where it slowed them down. The Dutch engineer was named, and he's been outed. But the reason that they can out him now is that allegedly he died 2 weeks after he did the infection in a tragic motorcycle accident.
Oh, I got Clinton.
And there's the official report says there's no foul play, but it kind of makes you suspicious of the timeline, even though this guy did a good thing and tried to help his country and help the world by not allowing Iran to gain nuclear weapon capabilities. So my question to the group here is, if you were approached by an intelligence agency to try and do something good for your country, would you have done it? If you were that Dutch engineer and they said, bring this water pump inside this nuclear facility and you'll disrupt Iran's nuclear program, would you have done it?
I just moved to Amsterdam recently. Is that why this has come up? Is that why you selected this story, Chris?
I think
I feel singled out.
I heard the story. I'm like, now that Kush is on, he moved to Amsterdam. This actually would be a nice dovetail into that.
Yeah, but seriously though, it's I can see pretty much anybody who shares the goals, right? As long as they feel that, look, I agree with the objective. Or often if you're in intelligence work, you don't even know what the objective is, right? You're just given a task. you have no idea
Yeah.
what it's accomplishing.
Yeah, they just said, bring this pump in and you're doing your country a favor.
Yeah,
You don't
and
need to know.
from what I understand, I read somewhere that I'm not sure whether this has been verified, but I read a report that said the US actually asked the Dutch for assistance and didn't even completely clue the Dutch in on why they were doing this.
Yeah, it's just kind of a wink, wink, like do this for us and you're doing the world a favor.
Don't ask too many questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like more as like it wasn't a volunteer, it's a voluntold situation.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy they recruited, he was actually the perfect asset because I believe he was Dutch, but he was married to an Iranian woman, which gave him free reign to go in and out of the country. And he was a vendor for these products that go into these nuclear facilities. So he's like the perfect target for
Dude, he was
for
probably
recruiting.
sweating bullets, man. They don't mess around. Like that's not like a stoning. That's probably like cut your
Yeah,
testicles
that's
off.
execution.
You get really violent over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be caught as a spy inside Iran. They don't follow the Geneva Convention.
No, they don't.
That's a perfect way in though, right? As a vendor, because like everybody screens their employees, does extensive background checks. Nobody checks the vendors, right? At least not as extensively.
Yeah, they usually rely on the vendor to vet their
Oh,
employees.
no, hold on. No, that's not
Yeah.
true.
Now, what if this was like a
Vendor companies have to go through extensive testing as well, and so do any of the employees that work under that contract under that company. So there are policies and procedures for that.
Sure, but you're trusting the vendor to
No,
be
they
honest
have
about
to
that.
abide by it, or else they lose the contract, right? So, I mean, my understanding is because when I worked at another company, and everyone had to get a background check, everyone had to be vetted. If you weren't, and they had hired, let's say, a criminal, they were bound to that. They could potentially lose a multi-million-dollar contract. So that's something that's not worth it typically.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
how would this
I
show
work
up
for a
in background
company
check?
I work for a company and we did work for a very large tech company. And they said in order to hold this contract, you have to background check every single employee that touches
to
their file.
certify
So I
it.
had to go through that. Even though I had to
Yeah.
go through a background check anyway to get the job, I had to
Yeah.
go through another one to satisfy this tech company. But even then, like they just do like criminal
Yeah.
check, credit check, and things like
Yeah.
that. Like there's no, it's not like getting top secret clearance where they interview your neighbors or anything. Like they'd have no idea if I was working with
But
a
they'd know at
foreign
least that
intelligence
you
agency.
had nothing, right? That you at least passed a local background check, which is better than nothing. And you didn't have a criminal record to begin with. That's something, right? Which I think most
Yeah.
of them are for, unless you're working for a
Yeah.
DOD,
So-
which requires a level of clearance, which is different than at that point, right?
Yeah, that's what they interview your neighbors. You have to fill out the form of every
Yeah.
extramarital affair you had and anything,
Yeah.
any other skeletons in your
I mean,
closet.
I know it's 7 years for a regular clearance, and then it's 20 years or 14 years for top secret after that, and you have to carry the position that goes with it. So that's pretty lengthy. I don't want to go back that far.
So is the timeline of events must have been, I guess patient zero was SanDisk gets a purchase order from the U.S. government for like 1 billion USB drives. Step 2 was we pollute the entire earth with these hopes that somebody from Iran will plug them in. But instead, all we're getting is literally every other country in the world access to it, and then possibly exposing ourselves if anyone figures it out. And so then stage 3 was, how about we contact this Dutch dude and see if he can do the heavy lift for us? Is that right?
I think you
it's-
have it in the reverse order. I think
Yeah.
they didn't add USB spreading capability to Stuxnet until later.
Well, why would they do it later if they already had C2?
Well, the report is apparently there's this fantastic book. I forget what it's called. I think Countdown to Zero Day.
Countdown to 0 Day, Kim Zetter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Apparently, what happened is that they were not satisfied with the rate of progress on this mission, so that's why they added USB spreading capabilities to like I don't know version 3 or something of it, so that it would
Yeah, and
spread a little faster. But that
I
comes
think-
with the risk of detection.
Right. I think this guy only got access to one of the facilities. It was Natanz and Bashir. I think he got access to one, and they wanted both or all. So then they added more virulent ways of spreading the malware through USB.
Oh, okay, makes sense. I'll tell you what, though. Like, we're lucky that not some really crappy person did it find out about this and to start opening the floodgates to every dam in America? Like it had the capabilities before it, right? I mean, it was targeting that, but ultimately it was targeting systems that are really common. So
it was PLCs, yeah. So it was the Siemens
PLCs,
programmable logic controllers, but
Windows CE.
it was hard coded in the malware that says look for centrifuges in this specific array type, and then they had it so it wouldn't accidentally blow something else up. It was very, very targeted. Although something went wrong, it started crashing computers, and then that's when people.
I got to follow up with Kush. Kush said there was an exciting book about a hack, and it was like, oh man, is this like a novel? Is this fiction, nonfiction? But it sounds like it's like something that happened. It's real. It's a real story, right? And how exciting is that? Is it really that exciting?
Yeah. It's nonfiction, but it's still a good story.
Exciting that my kids would read or my wife would read, or is it something
just
really just for nerds or for people in field?
Okay. No, it's probably for folks like us, yeah.
Technical. They'd have to be technical. It goes into like the history of like real world consequences of computer malware.
Yeah, or maybe if you're into like intelligence and stuff like that, intelligence stories, that would probably be right up your alley too.
What's the name of the book? May I ask for the full
Countdown to Zero Day.
Thank you.
Countdown to Zero. Kim Zetter. She did the reporting on it. She actually broke
let's
the
figure
story
out who knows more about the book. Jesus.
Dutch intelligence.
I wrote the foreword. Anyways, okay.
So my concern would be like I'd be willing to help, the intelligence agency. My concern would be if you ever watched that show Alias that came out in the 2000s, where Jennifer Garner thought she was working for the CIA, but it was some kind of counterintelligence agency. Right. Like they gave her the cover that yes, you are working for the CIA, but all this time she was working against the CIA, and then she finds out and then she switches sides. So that would be my only concern, is that I think I'm doing people a favor and my country a favor, but then it ends up being I'm helping the enemy that convinced me that I was actually working for the CIA. So I can't remember what show it was, but the CIA recruited some guy and says, I want you to walk me through the front doors of the headquarters in Langley, Virginia. That'll prove that you're actually with the CIA and not some counterintelligence agency.
So it reminds me of I guess if I was posed the same question, I'd immediately think of like Arlington Road, right? Am I being played here?
Right.
I don't want to go down as the terrorist. And then the other one too would be like, what if it was like, hey, we want you to go to Iraq and pretend that you saw weapons of mass destruction. That way we can lead a war for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, okay, but like if you don't really know all this stuff, I don't know that I could do it. But now, like maybe back then I would have been like, hell yeah, I got you. Like, America, let me tattoo it on my forehead. But nowadays I feel like I know a little bit better, and I don't know. Like I think if it's not in my characteristic to be that person, I don't know that I would step up for the country anymore.
I think Chris's test is good. Of course, it'll come down to like personal preferences. Like you said, Brian, if you're skeptical about the goal itself, and would you really even know the goal, right? They just tell you like, hey, I need you to go gather information. They might not even tell you that there's malware on the device, right? They might just tell you like, hey, I need you to go do this job. Here's a drive that has all the tools you need. You go plug it in, and it does its thing silently in the background. But yeah, Chris's test is good, I think. It's the same test that we give grandmas for banks, which is like, go to the source and verify that it's actually the right person calling you.
Yep. I'll call the CIA switchboard. Hey, do you know what an Agent Smith?
Jeez. I'm sorry, what was your name, sir? We're going to come visit you.
Starting trace. Well, we continue to get great comments about our dad joke of the week. This week, our guest Kush is up.
Yeah, so I actually applied for a job to be a doorman, but I didn't get the job, which I kind of found surprising because I thought it was an entry-level position. And they said I didn't have enough experience.
That's actually better than anything Glenn has ever put together. So good job.
Poor Glenn, not here to defend himself.
Oh, he's gone. I didn't notice.
All right, to wrap things up. New malware shows iPhones in lockdown mode when it's not. Throw your Barracuda email appliance into the trash bin. Apple continues to fight iPhone thefts. And the Dutch intelligence is not to be messed with. That's all I have for this week. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find us all on LinkedIn. Links will be in the description. Follow us on Instagram at PEBCAK Podcast. Thank you to all listeners and subscribers who rated us 5 stars in the iTunes Store and Spotify and left us a review. We appreciate you all spreading the word to help grow the show. The best way to find us is to search for the PEBCAK Podcast on your favorite podcast listening app. My co-host Brian Deitch and Glenn Medina, and our guest Kush, I'm Chris Louie. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all next weekend. As always, have a nice day.
See you later, guys. And as Glenn would say, bye, Felicia.